It started when my son Chase was a year and a half, and we took him to the doctor for his well check, and he had developed some eczema. So they suggested a topical steroid for him. We applied the steroid to him twice a day, and in about a week, the eczema went away, and he was doing a lot better. Over time, we noticed that his eczema started coming back, and it started coming back in more areas, just on his stomach, on his back, and just different parts of his body that he didn't have it before. So we went back to the doctor, and they suggested a stronger topical steroid. And his eczema had gotten so bad that his whole body was red. He looked like a third-degree burn victim. His skin started peeling off, like we'd walk around the house and just pick up pieces of skin like he had a peeling sunburn. He was in a lot of pain. He wasn't sleeping. He had lost so much weight. He was down to 18-month clothes. He couldn't really eat anymore. He had become really lethargic. He would spend days on the couch. We would get him up in the morning and bathe him and put him on the couch, and he would see his sisters play, and he couldn't get up. We had to pull him out of preschool because it had just gotten so bad. And then we noticed we would wash his hair, and his hair was just by the globs. His hair was just coming out. He lost all the hair on his body. He started to lose his hair on his head, his eyebrows he had lost. At the time, we still didn't know what was going on. We went to the doctor, and they suggested a stronger steroid. And I told him, he's been on steroids for a year and a half, and his eczema is getting worse. And they said, he needs a stronger steroid. So we got a tub of steroids from this particular doctor, and they told us to just liberally rub it all over him day and night as much as he needed. So we did. He was just getting worse. He was just to the point where he couldn't really talk. He actually stopped walking for 2 months. We had to carry him everywhere. He had no movement in his legs. He lost muscle mass. His organs were shutting down. Essentially, he was dying. We were between 4 or 5 different hospitals. We saw specialists all over. Every single one gave us more steroids. So the last doctor we saw, number 13, she comes in the room and she looked at him, and he couldn't move, he couldn't talk, he couldn't do anything. And she says, we're gonna admit him. And I said, oh, what are you gonna admit him for? Like, thank you, what are you doing? What's wrong with him? I don't know, was her response. And I looked at my husband, I'm like, well, what are you gonna do then if you don't know what's wrong with him? What are you gonna do? And she said, I don't know, but I'm gonna suggest that we put him on an IV of steroids to get his body functioning again. And she left the room to go get the admitting papers. And at that point, I looked at my husband and I'm like, something isn't sitting well in my spirit. Something's not right here. I think it might be steroids. That's the only thing we keep getting, and he's getting worse. I'm not a doctor, but I just something's not right with the steroids. And my husband said, what do you want to do? And I said, let's just pray. And we prayed, and I heard God say, get out of here, just go. And I was like, they're gonna call CPS on me, because I've seen this happen before if I refuse to admit my son. But I felt like God was telling me, if you let them, they're gonna kill him, take him home. And I looked at my husband, I'm like, let's just get out of here. And we got in the car with my son and we went home. I remember we sat on the couch and looked at each other like, now what? We can't go to the doctor. Who do we call? What do we do? And I just cried out to God. I'm like, okay, you told me to bring him home. Now I gotta trust you. It was one of those things where you can't look at your husband, you can't look at your friends, you can't even look at your pastors, you can't look at anybody and say, is my son gonna be okay? Is he gonna be okay? It was me and God. Within minutes, my phone rang. And it was a friend from church, Jamie Steinson, called me, and she has been amazing with going through this process with me, looking up stuff, trying to help me figure it out. And she called and she said, I know what he has. I'm like, what? She said, it's called topical steroid addiction. I'm like, what is that? And when she said steroid, I'm like, confirmation. I'm like, God just spoke the word steroid to me a little bit ago. And she found a lady in Atlanta. She was searching, found a blog and a website. We looked it up, we read it together, and I'm like, oh my God, same symptoms. And this lady's son went through the same process and he was healed. Got her number, got on the phone with her, and walked me through the next 2 years of my life that were hell. It was like taking a heroin addict coming off heroin. He had to go through a withdrawal. We had to cut all the steroids cold turkey. I threw every steroid away, and his body was craving the steroids. But God was amazing because He provided literally everything that we needed along that process. he is such a spiritual kid. I mean, going through this, as mad and as frustrated as he got, the kid never went to bed at night without singing his worship songs, without singing Break Every Chain, and he still sings Break Every Chain. So I definitely know that he's anointed, and his future is going to be helping people. He is back in school. His hair has grown back. He's playing. He's functioning normally. He's never been on another steroid, and all of the allergies that he had before are gone. He tells people Jesus healed me, and the other thing is now on the support group, I've become a mentor and an advocate, and Chase and I both are a support for them. Chase and I pray for the other kids that are going through this. Something that strengthened my faith, because it wasn't something that came quick. It wasn't something that came fast. It wasn't something where you hear I brought him to healing services. We did everything, and it's not, and God healed him. But I was more like, I thought, when we did that stuff, that he was just gonna be instantly healed. And he was healed, but it came through a process that God needed to walk me through so that I knew the power of faith. As young as he was, he knew what he went through. He knew the process, and he knows that God healed him. When people ask him, oh, you look so much better, and he'll say, Jesus healed me. So he knows, and I know that he's gonna do big things with this.